Good afternoon. We want to welcome you this afternoon to our meeting. And whether you're attending live or whether you're just watching a recording of this, we want you to take a moment. If you'll see on the left side of the screen, there is a QR code. Go ahead and use your camera. Go ahead and come into that code and you will be able to sign in. The convening type for today, it's entitled Mental Health for Us. And if you look at the check-in code is P2238. And it's right there on the left side of the screen. We want you to know that you are more than welcome to take a break as the need might arise. And we're asking that you please mute your screen during the session. And if you need to take a technology break, by all means, go ahead and do that. If you're having any kind of technical difficulties or you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out. We have one of our Counselor Core facilitators, Yervang, available, and you can send her an email or you can reach her in the chat room. And we showed the little icon there in the bottom so that you can go ahead and contact her if you need to. We want to thank you. Today, you are directly supporting our team that works with our children, with our staff, with other stakeholders. And once more, if you'll notice there on the right side of your screen, we once again have the link so that you can sign in, and this documents your participation today. And we're going to give you a quick second to go ahead and take a picture of the QR code. We also have the sign-in information for you. And today's title is the convening type for today is Mental Health for Us. And the check-in code is P2238. Today, we want to just welcome our Team Tulsa Mental Health team. They're here to participate and to support our convening. And we have our Manager of Mental Health Services, Christy Spears. We have our Mental Health Specialist, Heather Opp. And 5 of our Counselor Core facilitators are with us today. We have Rosemary Gee, Kendrea Green, myself, I am Esperanza Darling. We have Yervang and Kenitra Williams. And Ms. Christy is going to give us some information on supporting wellness. Go ahead, Christy.
So thank you everyone for being here. We're excited that you could be present. Just want to point out a quick reference guide for you. In our department, the mental health team actually lives in the Student and Family Support Services office. It is a very large team. Therefore, we wanted you to have a quick way to access resources when they are needed. So this just gives you the name of the leads in the department and the work that they support. You may also reach them via their email. Next slide, please. We also want to ensure that everyone knows that even though this is a mental health for us related support and we're talking about wellness, we want you to always have access to emergency resource. Our faithful partners at Family and Children's Services of Oklahoma have a mobile crisis unit called COPES. It is free and it is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you are ever in need of mental health support that requires immediate attention, you do not have to hesitate. You may call them at any time. Their number is 918-744-4800. Of course, you may also access support through the closest emergency room. At the top of this deck, you will see a link that leads into all kinds of information about COPES, how people are referred, follow-up services, etc. Next slide, please. We have an opportunity through our partners at Mental Health Association of Oklahoma to provide free mental health screenings for ages 11 to 24. Please know that this youth check is a valuable resource. If you have questions, please reach out to someone on the mental health team and we will connect you with someone at site level, or you may reach out directly to MHAOK. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Christy. So today we are going to have a learning agenda, and the topics that we will be doing today. First of all, we are going to be starting with Rosemary Gee. She's going to do a welcoming ritual with us. We're going to continue on into our subject for today, which is the 5 love languages for children and for teens. And finally, we are going to close with a very optimistic closure with Ms. Kendrea Green. So let's go ahead and let's start with our welcoming. Rosemary, it's all yours.
Thank you, Esperanza. Good evening, everyone. Well, we know that the last 2 years, it has been different. We have had a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of confusion and a lot of things up and down like a roller coaster. So I want to ask all you lovely people out there, if you could have exchanged, what would you rather have been, the parent or the student in the last couple of years? Just drop that in the chat and tell us why.
Ms. Rosemary, as we have our parents putting in some of their answers, I'd like to ask our team, Ms. Gier, which of these answers would you give today?
I don't know, to be honest. Maybe probably the parent.
Right.
Because it has been very difficult on our children. Just
Right.
the not knowing.
Gotcha. What about you, Ms. Rosemary? Which one would you rather have been during this pandemic, parent or the child?
Well, since I have experienced it as a parent, I would have liked to experience it as a child to see what the students
Right.
actually are going through and how they're really feeling
Right.
about all of this.
I know. A lot of stay-at-home time, huh? What about you, Ms. Christie? What would you have preferred to been?
I think it's been difficult on everyone, and I think the challenges were unique depending on the circumstance. So I don't think either are without challenge, but also perhaps some learning opportunities. As Ms. Rosemary said, we've seen it from the adult side. We probably have a better understanding of how to serve others if I had actually experienced it through the child's lens.
Right, right. Ms. Kendrea, which one would you have been?
I definitely want to do the child this round. I'm going to go with the child.
I gotcha. What about you, Ms. Kenitra?
I would stick with being the parent. I don't think anyone really had any control during this, but I feel like I have more control as a parent. I think as a child, it really is depending on what all the adults in your life are telling you, and so
Right.
You kind of lose some of that control there.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, I tell you what, I had to learn new math. So I definitely want to be the child because I have never been more challenged with homework and having to learn subjects. I thought I knew, but I guess they reinvented how math is done because I obviously did not know how to do it. So definitely I want to be the child so somebody can teach me something. Well, thank you, everybody. We hope you put this information in the chat room and just food for thought, just to get our mind thinking about where we are, where we'd like to be. Thank you, Ms. Rosemary. Well, as I stated, today we are going to be talking about love languages. You know, communicating love to our kids, that's the foundation of communication for us. Today, we're going to be taking a 10-minute little break, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to take a quiz. And this quiz is going to be so that you can identify your love language. The link that we're going to be sharing has a quiz for you, the parent. There's also in the same button that you're going to press, there's a quiz for your child, and this is ages 5 through 12. And there's also a quiz for your teenagers, ages 13 plus. Dr. Gary Chapman wrote a book that was entitled The 5 Love Languages, and this helps individuals to identify and understand how one expresses love to others and how one receives love from others. He's also gone on to write some amazing books that we'll show you a picture of towards the end. And these books, same thing, love languages, but it's geared towards kids. And there's also a book that is geared towards teenagers. So depending on the age of children that you have in your home, these books outline 5 general ways to express and to experience love. Dr. Chapman calls these love languages. They're acts of service, gift giving, physical touch, quality time, and words of affirmation. So we're going to go into detail of each of these categories after our quiz. So if you'll take a moment, pull out your telephone, you can use the camera on your phone. Right in the center of the page is the QR code with the quizzes. These 2 QR codes on either side. If you'd like to have a printable PDF, there's one for children, there's one for teenagers in case you want to give want to have this printed, you're more than welcome to, but it's that QR code right in the center. We're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break now, and we're going to give you the opportunity. Take your time. When you press into it and you go into the first page, it will ask you, are you an adult? Is this a quiz for a child, or is this a quiz for a teenager? And that way it can give you the information. So take your quiz, and in 10 minutes, we'll come back, write down somewhere or keep it handy on your phone so that you can understand as we go through the explanation what it is that your love language really means. Okay, we'll see you all in 10 minutes. Thank you. Well, we'd like to welcome you back. Hopefully all of you had an opportunity to take your quiz and you have an idea of what your love language is. So let's talk a little bit about that today. The first step in really understanding what it is that your child's primary language is to pay attention to how they speak to you and how they're showing you love. We all tend to offer affection in the way we would like to receive it. But the other piece of the puzzle is, what is your child asking for? So let's go ahead and let's start today with words of affirmation. And you can see some different explanations of what that could possibly be here on our screen, expressing verbal appreciation, encouraging words. But let me ask you, does your child say things like, talk to me? Are you listening, mom? Little words, phrases like this. Kids who listen intently, or speak real sweetly, your loving words really do matter to them. Let me ask you, is this your kid? If your child beams whenever you praise them or offers you a lot of real sweet feedback, for example, my son, Nick, he's already a teenager, but he'll always pull me close and he'll say stuff like, Mommy, you're my favoriteest mommy. Of course, I think he wants something, but he loves to express himself. Some of the ways that we can express love to children whose love language is words of affirmation are do little things, put little love notes in their lunch pail or their lunch boxes or however it is that you communicate. Some people put little Post-its in their mirrors. I've seen one of the things that our kids love today is obviously they text a lot. Send them a real sweet meme or something real sweet, something that lets them know you're communicating with them. I've seen people give real cute bracelets that say something like you're special or my child. Dr. Auburn of San Francisco says that when she wants to talk to her child, she notices that words of affirmation really affect her. She says she gets down on one knee, because small child, and she'll talk to her child face to face, and she'll say things, real sweet things like, you're the best thing in my life, or you're so special to me. Speaking encouraging words builds self-esteem, builds self-worth. But let me give you some common pitfalls. And this is for children whose words of affirmation is a love language. Dr. Chapman, in one of his books for children, writes, insults cut deep. Particularly important for kids who hear the words, I love you, and then there's an insult that can really affect a child. One of the things that Dr. Chapman writes about is called unconditional love. And what he means by this is when you say, I love you, that's all you want to say. I love you. Never say things like, I love you, but, or I love you, and. The way he writes it is that this can imply that love is conditional, but we need to love and to speak to our children with unconditional love. So that's words of affirmation. What are words? What are acts of service? A phrase that a child could say, and one of my children has this one. They always used to say, here, you do this, mommy. Here, you help me, mom. Here, mom, you take care of this. These acts of service, it's a particular sounding love language, but kids who speak this type of language, their language is like gestures. You can do really sweet things like you buy specific cookies that you know they love, or like on a hot day, you'll take them out for an ice cream, just between the two of you. It's an act of service. So I know that one of the things that kids that have this, they love stuff like, can you tie their shoelaces? Or when they break a toy, they come and bring it to you. Or they're waiting for you to come and help them tuck them into bed. So different ways that you can express love for a child who says acts of service are my love language is that you can do simple little things. One of the things I used to do when it used to be really cold, very wintry, is I'd go throw the towels in the dryer and they'd be nice and warm. So, I'd set them there in it's just little warm things that you can do for them, or you turn on a heating blanket. It's constant acts, gestures that you're showing them that they're important to you, that you're expressing your love. Dr. Chapman says that the best act of service you can provide is to walk your child through a new process. Teach them step by step. I used to love to teach my children how to tie their shoelaces. But at some point, this can become a pitfall if you get into the place where you're kind of jumping at every request, Dr. Chapman says the best act of service that you can give them is to sit there, teach them how to do it, participate with them, but at some point, you sit there and you praise them as they are beginning to do things on their own. Let's go on to our next love language. The next love language is called physical touch. Let me ask you, does your child say things like, "Mommy, cuddle me, mommy, hold me," or little boys, "Mom, chase me, can you catch me?" Kids like this love to move, love to run around, but a hug says everything to a child like that. A hug really tells them that you love them. And to all kids, a hug is wonderful, but those who love physical touch, it shouts, "I love you." Ask me about my kids, because I have 4 children and I have another child whose love is physical touch. Dr. Chapman, he also had a son who preferred this love language, and he writes in his book, "When I came home, my son would run to the door, grab my leg, and climb all over me." He says, if children are constantly in your space, touching you, hugging you, playing with your hair, that's a signal that they love touch, that they love that physical touch. Some of the ways that you can express love to precious children like this is just sit on the couch and snuggle with them. Ask your child if they want to come sit on your lap, or if they want to just come and hug you, or high fives is a big thing with my son that loves physical touch. One of the things he used to say when he was growing up is he would hold my hand and he would say, "My hand needs a hug, Mom." Dr. Chapman suggests even things like wrestling or playing sports. There's so many different ways that you can work with them, and there's different little things that, like, you can create your own high five or your own secret handshake. Anything that shows these children that you love to hug, love to touch. A common pitfall that Dr. Chapman warns about, and this one's a serious one. He writes in his book, "A slap or a spanking is hurtful to any child, but it is devastating to the one whose primary love language is touch." Research has also shown that dads tend to become less physical and physically affectionate when their daughters start to grow up. But one of the things he suggests is make a good habit of giving that good morning hug and the good night hug. That will keep you connected to your child, and that keeps that love language alive. The next one is quality time. And this is a common sentence you'll hear from a child whose love language is quality time. They say things like, "Hey, come here, Mom. You got to see this. Come here, quick. I got to show you something." That's a child that has quality time love language. These children feel most valued when you choose to spend time with them. Tell me something. Is this your child? The child who often says, "Hey, watch this," or "Come play with me," or "Come here, come sit down. I got to tell you something." They're begging for quality time. Dr. Chapman's own daughter would say, "Daddy, come to my room. I got to show you something. Quick, come here." In addition to just being together, your undivided attention is what is the most important when you want to express quality time with them. Things like turning off the telephone, turning off the TV. Sometimes just sitting and talking with somebody is so important to them. And on the other end, Dr. Chapman would say, this isn't something that you have to sit there and just kind of stare at them. And quality time is simple things like just sitting together, watching a TV show together, something where they just feel your presence. They feel like you kind of stop the whole world and you're paying attention to them, and they're right there next to you. Of course, a common pitfall for this, as Dr. Chapman writes in his book, he says, if your love language is quality time and your method of discipline is putting them in the room and isolating them, that's a severe punishment to them. Also, don't assume that spending extra time together means that you need to abandon your to-do list. Even reading beside your child when they're absorbed in their own play will let them feel your warm presence. I love that. Quality time is my love language. Sometimes just sitting there watching a movie together just makes you feel so loved, like somebody's there with you for that. And finally, our final love language is called receiving gifts. And this was my sister growing up. A phrase you always heard from her is presents. Anybody? Presents? Today, as she had a calendar for every special day of the year. She knew when it was Lollipop Day. She knew when today is Nike Day. She knew when today is People Who Live on Fifth Avenue Day. And she wanted a gift for every single one of these days. So now that I'm older, now that I understand love languages, that's her love language. So I mail her stuff. So children who feel loved when they receive things, they're not just asking for more stuff. Tell me, is this your kid? Someone whose primary love language is gifts tends to care about how the gift is wrapped. They'll remember who sent it to them. And here's the wonderful one, and this is my sister. They will hang on to stuff years after. They don't play with it. They don't touch it. Some people call them hoarders, but they're gift receivers. They love to hang on to stuff. One of the ways that you can express love, and this reminds me of love, something real special my mom used to do to all of us, and it's priceless to us now. Whenever there was a lot of trees in her yard, and she would, when we moved far away, she would go and pluck a leaf off the tree, and she would mail a different leaf to all of us. And for years, I didn't know, but my sister, the one that loves gifts, she was collecting these leaves. And a couple of years ago, she sent us all a little picture. Well, she had created this beautiful piece of art with all the different leaves that she had collected over the years that my mom had sent to her, because they were so priceless to her. You know, it was a free gift. And that's one of the ways that we can express. It doesn't mean that you go out there and you start buying all kinds of gifts. It's not so much the cost of the gift, it's what is coming behind it and how you're expressing to them that you thought of them at that moment. It could be something as simple as a rock. My daughter loves to collect rocks. So every city I go to, I always find a nice looking little rock, throw it in my pocket, and she has a whole rock collection, because these gifts are letting that child know, I thought about you, I love you, this means something. And of course, there are common pitfalls where we have to be careful not to overdo gifts, and that's not how we're buying our child's love. Dr. Chapman talks about how sometimes in a couple that has been divorced, this is something where the competition is to see who can get more gifts, because we believe that that's how we're expressing love. But it's not the gift, it's the heart that comes behind that giving. So even though Dr. Chapman believes that love languages, he calls them our personality traits that are going to stay with us for the rest of our lives, we need to understand that as a child grows, some of their expressions of love could possibly change. For example, a toddler that as a baby loved to be hugged and loved to, as they grow into a 7-year-old, they might call their love now as roughhousing. They love to fight, they love to wrestle. It's still touch, it's just how they're expressing it. You know, a young teenager that at the beginning used to love to hear beautiful words and being praised, maybe their love language is they love to hear. They turn into a 13-year-old teenager and they're like, don't talk to me right now. It's okay. They'll come back around and they love to hear words of love. The most important thing is stay in tune. Listen to your children. Their behavior is telling you, their behavior is expressing to you what it is that they're really wanting to do. Communicating love, unconditional love, that you love them even when they don't behave perfect, or even when they excel wonderfully. You unconditionally love them and you just want to communicate with them. You want to be there for them. I want to show you here, these are some of the books that Dr. Chapman wrote. And as you can see, they also come in other languages. I have here a couple of them in Spanish. But these are amazing investments. I have these on my audiobook, and my children are now teenagers, young adults, but there is some wonderful advice that really goes into a lot of detail of how to communicate with our kids and how to express to them that we love them and that we're there for them. There's also the 5 love languages for adults, because we also want to express to one another. They're looking at us and how we communicate to other people. Our kids can also communicate back to us. And if they understand what your love language is, well, if they know if it's physical touch, they'll want to hug you all the time. If it's quality time, my kids know that when I want to spend time, they come into the room, no cell phone in their hand, no TV remote in the other. I just really want to talk with them and have quality time with them. So learn your love language, learn to communicate. It is a very expressive way of telling one another that we truly love each other. So Hopefully you can acquire these books. They're amazing, an amazing read. So are there any questions that you might have? Please feel free to communicate in our chat room. If we're not able to get to you, please leave some information that we can send something to you. We also are going to be having Miss Kendrea, and she is going to come along and she is going to do our closing ritual today. We have really had a wonderful time spending some time with you and getting to know you. Parents in our school district are so precious to us, and we want to communicate with you, and we want to see you communicating with our students. So go ahead, Ms. Kendrea.
Thank you, Esperanza. I am definitely in touch with my love language. I just want to move into the optimistic closure. So we all know that self-care is the best care. And self-care is something we should enjoy doing, and not something we should feel forced to do. So today's activity is really simple. I just want you to think of one thing that you plan to do as spring break approaches us for yourself, as the beautiful weather is allegedly on the way. Fingers crossed. Don't talk about the snow from Friday. Fingers crossed. So you can drop that in the chat, or you can just say that out loud. So we're just going to go with the people that are on our team. And Esperanza, would you start?
Well, like I said, quality time is important to me. So I am taking my two, one is a teenager and one is a young adult, my two sons, and we are going to New York City together. I want to go do a Broadway show with one of them. They promised to go lay in the grass of Central Park. We hope there's grass. If not, we're going to be hurting. But we're going to go lay in the grass of Central Park and just make grass angels and just lay there. We hope the ground's not frozen solid, because that's not going to work too well. Time.
Exciting. You're in New York City.
And New York City. Yes. Yes.
Kanitra?
I'm actually sending my children away for spring break. So I'm going to be lounging at home and not cooking. So if I want to eat cereal for dinner, I'm going to eat cereal for dinner. And then I'm going to be prepping my flower beds to get ready to plant flowers.
Sounds exciting. Miss Yer?
Just work out. Try to work out and get outside.
Sounds good. And Christy?
I just was so excited you were talking about the possibility of warm weather. I just am like, oh, it can't come fast enough. I so much appreciate quality time, and one of the ways that I renew and restore is spending quality time with family and friends, and family, as I call the family that we get once we're already here. So I'm super excited to spend time doing that and restore and renew.
I am going to ditto that. I am definitely going to have some quality time, hopefully a piece with myself, and then a piece also with my friends and my family. So thank you so much for participating in our self-care activity.
Thank you, Kendrea. I cannot wait. I cannot wait till the weather stays consistently warm. I agree. Well, we want to thank you. Today was a wonderful day. And if you'll take a moment, once again, pull out your camera, and we have another QR code that's here. And this is just a basic wrap up, letting us know how we did, letting us know if you have any questions, any communication you want to give to us. It's here on your screen. And we just want to thank you for spending time with us today. And we look forward to our next convening soon. We will be communicating that to you. Have a wonderful afternoon, and take good care of yourselves and communicate with your children. They're dying to hear from you. Have a wonderful day.